I'm Lance Lambert. Thanks for tuning in to the Vintage Vehicle Show. We are in Lake Havasu City, Arizona at the Relics and Rods Run to the Sun car show. A great car show. There's over 800 cars here, a lot of great people, a lot of great cars. You're going to get a chance to see some of these cars and meet some of these people and hear some great music. So do what I tell you to do every week. Just kick back, relax, and enjoy the show. One of the fun things about doing the Vintage Vehicle Show is I'm cruising around looking at cars that I want to do an interview about. Today I walked by this car probably 3 times and all of a sudden it just leapt out at me. Gil Losi, this is really cool. 1933 Ford, very cool.
Well, thank you very much. I want to do something a little bit different.
You did. The flat and the paint looks fantastic. The interior looks as good as anything you'd see at the Grand National or whatever. Tell us how this all came about and your choices of kind of combining a little bit of the the funkier look with the really sleek look.
Well, I was a 1950s hot rodder, so wanted to kind of go back to my roots, but doing it in a modern way. This car is an all hand-built car. The car is all hand-formed out of steel and aluminum by Marcel DeLay and his sons. The body was designed by Chip Foose and built by Boyd Coddington, so it's got some great lineage.
Never heard of them. Never heard of those guys.
A couple of car guys. Yeah. It's kind of my design. In fact, when I first did it with Boyd, he said, "You're nuts." But as it started coming along, everybody started to understand it a little bit better. It's a car that's, I think, really appreciated by car people more than just people walking by,
Is this a Boydster 2 or 3 body?
This is the Boydster 3 the only one that's out of steel, and they use this to make the fiberglass molds.
We had Boyd on the show. We did a tour of his shop, and he taught. This was prior to these things being available. So you got the mama one, huh?
Yeah, this is the only steel one there is. This is the real deal.
What kind of reaction do you get from people?
When are you going to paint it? I tell them that it was painted and I got caught in a sandstorm on the way here. Now, the people that understand it think it's really, really, really a neat car.
And the people that say, when are you going to paint it, or either your buddy's giving you a bad time or people you don't want to carry much more of a conversation on with?
Well, I carry the conversation on, but it's mostly my buddies that are giving me a hard time, yeah.
Imagine car guys giving a guy a bad time.
Oh, that's what else is new.
The running gear on this?
It's got an LS6 Corvette. But if you get in there later, we did a bunch of work to it to make it kind of fit the car rather than look like a modern Corvette engine. And it's got a 4L60E, which is a 4-speed automatic transmission, Corvette rear end, all billet machined, running A-arms and spindles and all that stuff. So it's basically a hand-built car.
Gil, one of the things that makes this car such a striking car is the pinstriping and the scalping. This is really nicely done. Who did that?
Well, we had two guys do it. Dennis Rickless out of Boyd's shop did all the straight line stuff, and all the freestyle stuff was done by little Louie. And like he said, this thing is like a palette. It's like a painter's palette, and he got a kick out of doing it. And I don't know if you noticed the gauges, but they're all striped too. He did those with the jeweler's glasses because the stripes are so small.
And little Louie, he's kind of in demand, isn't he?
I think he's the best in the country. And between him and Dennis, you can't do any better.
So the dull paint job, the scallop stopped me, but these wheels, I've never seen anything like these wheels.
Well, again, a combination of new and old. Now, they are all billet wheels. They're one-off wheels. The cap's put on with an O-ring. So it's in there. There's 15s in the front. In fact, there's 16s in the front and 18s in the rear. So that modern sizes, but old style with the small hubcaps. And we put the Ratster name in the middle of it too.
Well, Gil, thank you very much. This is a beautiful car. Enjoy it and don't paint it.
Well, I think you're a car guy for picking it out. Okay, I'm serious.
You hear that?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Gil.
Okay. All right.
Dave Schaab, I think I'm going to speak for the viewers here that I am so tired of going to car shows and seeing 1952 Nash Air Flight sedan deliveries. They are actually, I've never seen one before, so very, very unusual. Tell us about this car.
It's a 52 Nash Air Flight. It is got a 16.5-inch tub rear end under it, 16.5-inch tires. Got a Lincoln Versailles rear with disc brakes, got a Mustang front with disc brakes, got a small block Chevy engine with the 350 tranny. It's power windows, power steering, power brakes, and all that kind of stuff. It was built about 10 years ago in California, and I have driven this car at least 10,000 miles or more from Washington State to Reno and back a few times, and from Washington State to Scottsdale, and now here in Lake Havasu. It has been around a lot, so it doesn't sit in a garage. Never seen a trailer.
Do you get much grief from people for having doing all this to a Nash?
No, they kind of love it because this is a very rare and unusual car. There are a couple more around, but I have never seen another one.
I've seen them in magazines, or one in a magazine.
Well, I've had it up at, I'm from Washington State. I've had it up there in the Good Guys shows several times and lots of shows around the state of Washington. And this was actually in 1995 in Street Rodder magazine. It is a centerfold picture in the magazine. It was built in 1994.
So this is the sexy centerfold that every 16-year-old boy favors?
Absolutely. So it's just a very unusual car, and it's about time it gets some recognition.
Yeah. These have about a 98-inch wheelbase, right?
Correct.
And what's it handle like on the freeway? Or at acceleration?
It handles really well. Actually down the freeway when I hit about 85, you got to hang on because it's a little squirrely because it's very light with those small tires and the big tires in the back. But I have no problem at 85 down the highway.
And here in Lake Havasu, there is no speed limit. I think people know about the Arizona Autobahn where you can just go as fast as you want. Is that correct?
Absolutely true. There is no speed limit here. I go as fast as I want. They just can't catch me.
Yeah. Well, let's see how fast we can get to the beer garden up the hill.
That sounds pretty good. Which way is it?
Yeah, that way. Come with me.
Okay.
Walking along here on the shores of Lake Havasu, and this beautiful 1937 Packard jumps out at me. I love orphan cars, and I love this car. Barry Carter, this is a fantastic car.
Well, thank you, Lance, very much. We love it. We fell in love with it when we first saw it, and you don't see many of them around.
No. Exactly. And the first question, I should kind of work into this, but I'm going to hit you with it right away. What happens when a Packard purist comes along and sees a bit of a street-rotted 37 Packard?
They have mixed emotions because they are a purist and they wish that it was still pure, but it never looked this good when it was black. It looks beautiful in this color, and most of them come around to it being okay.
Plus, guys our age don't really throw punches much anymore anyway.
No,
So
you're right. I feel safe.
yeah. So tell us about the running gear. What power is this?
It's got an LT1 engine in it, Chevy engine in it, and a 700R4 Chevy transmission, a 9-inch Ford rear end, leaf suspension, and it runs very, very nice down the road, cruises at 75, 80 miles an hour, just like it was brand new.
Have you been seeking a Packard all this time, or did this just flip your switch when you saw it one day and decided you needed it?
We saw this car at the Spokane show about 5 years ago. My wife and I both fell in love with it. It was our first hot rod. I hadn't had a hot rod since I was about 16. And we looked at it and said, you know, this is a Las Vegas car, needs to be in Las Vegas, needs to be in our garage. Took me a year to talk the gentleman into selling it to me.
Thank you, Barry.
Thank you, Lance,
All
very
right.
much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Red is a great color. You can't go wrong with a car. I think this is red, but then I look at it and it's orange, and then I look at it and it's a little something else. Steve and Drew Bryant, what color is this 1933 Chevrolet?
It's called persimmon. It's just a stock House of color. It's called persimmon.
So does Dad know what he's talking about? Is that the color?
He does.
Or is this Drew orange or something?
I wish. It looks that good.
33 Chev, they're around, but you don't see that many of them. Tell them a little bit about how you got this car and the history of it.
Well, this car kind of came by accident. We were at a car show in Del Mar, and with my wife and daughters, and I have other cars, and I happened to see this car, and it was just a real unusual car. And the next day I happened to show it to my wife and daughter, and they said, "Guy, you got to buy that. You can sell one of your others and get that." And I said, "Well, I don't really have to buy a car, but yeah, I could do that." So we bought the car, and eventually.
This is your wife telling you this?
Yeah, my wife and daughter.
Good family, good family. The running gear on this, what's lurking below the hood?
This one's a 327 with a 350 transmission, independent front suspension, aluminum radiator, all the right stuff. It's a driver. You can get in and take it to New York today.
Drew, if your dad handed you $20,000 and said, change this car, what would you do?
I don't think there's anything I'd change. It's a lot different than the other cars out here. Like the looks of it, and it's definitely a custom and just looks great. So I don't think there's anything you could change about it.
So you'd put that 20 grand in your pocket and say, thanks, Pops. Wise move. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for being on the Vintage Vehicle Show. It's a beautiful car. Thank you. All right. We are in Yucca, Arizona at the Ford Proving Grounds. This is where they take brand new Fords, even newer than brand new Fords, run them through some very extensive, tough tests to make sure that those trucks and cars stay tough. We are fortunate enough to be here. We're going to go on the test track. You're going to meet somebody real interesting that knows a lot about the equipment here and how it all operates. Maybe you're even going to go for a ride. So you know what I tell you every week, just kick back, relax, and enjoy the show. This is so exciting to be in the belly of the beast, so to speak. We are in headquarters. This is where some real tough decisions, some tough research, some real close scrutiny goes on the Ford vehicles. In here in the testing facilities, there's a lot goes on here, and who does this? Who's in charge of this, or who oversees some of this? Well, Chris Heisinger, come on in here. Chris, how are you?
Doing okay, thank you.
All right. So what's your duties here, and how did this all come about?
Okay, well this is the garage facility where when the vehicles inevitably have some issues or updates, we fix them or update the vehicles here, do repairs. Each of these is a bay, raise and lower the vehicles. My responsibilities here are electrical systems, wiring. So when the wires come loose and break or whatever, I get in there, diagnose why and how to get in there and fix it.
So out on the test track in the middle of the shoot, I could just reach under the dashboard, rip out a bunch of wires, and you can take care of it right on the spot.
On the spot, yes it will.
Well, this is a great spot here. Why don't we take a look at some of the cars you have in here?
Sure.
So you have something that obviously looks like a police training vehicle. Tell us about this car.
Now this vehicle will be out here doing the performance work. As you can see, it's outfitted with measurement devices to check wheel speed, verify the wheel speed, and generally what they do is we have different facilities and surfaces where these vehicles are tested. They test the lockup or with the ABS systems to make sure that they don't lock up and have the minimum stopping distance. So these will monitor all the wheel speeds, and you can see the big bunch of hardware inside the front seat to monitor all that goes on inside the vehicle, the systems in addition to the brake systems.
So it says training vehicle. Do you have actual police officers coming out here and driving the vehicle, or is it just your drivers?
We have our trained tiered drivers, so they actually drive the vehicles on the events. We do have the police facilities coming out, and they have been doing some training in our facility as well, on our ABS facility.
I'm a terrible driver, and I'm willing to take a lot of risks. Does that make me a good driver out here on the test track?
No. As I said, all our drivers are trained, and we go through various evaluations with the higher tier drivers to train the lower tier drivers.
So I don't look like a higher tier driver?
No, not yet.
Near and dear to many Ford aficionados over the years are the Falcon. That was a great car, a warm and fuzzy car. Here you have a Falcon XR8. Tell us about that.
Yeah, this is a vehicle that's from Australia. They're doing some certification testing out here. This is a high-performance version of the Falcon. It's got a V8 5.4 liter in there, and right now it's doing ABS evaluation. As you can see, again, the sensors on there to monitor wheel speed, and basically they take it to the performance surfaces and they do panic stops and various ABS inducing events that ABS kicks in and brings it to a stop in minimum distance.
And this is a 5.2?
5.4.
5.4, and it's manual shift?
Manual transmission.
May I have one?
Unfortunately, no. The Falcon, I know it was a model sold here in the States, but right now it's just being sold in Australia.
Well, I know you wouldn't appreciate me saying anything to the viewers like, get a hold of the Ford company and say you want them here. This looks like a really hot, fun car.
It is.
Well, you have a lot of hot, fun cars in here, but you also have some good-looking trucks. Can we take a look at one of those?
Absolutely.
All right. We have the good fortune to be able to go out on your track today. We're going to be doing it in a truck, not this particular truck, but I think when people think of trucks, they think of Ford trucks. Are there certain standards that certain vehicles have to meet?
Actually, all the trucks run the same procedure, except for vans run a little bit different procedure, but in general, they all get the same level of abuse. The F-250s, because it's a heavier vehicle, lot more mass, it beats itself up on the same events. So generally they all run through the same events. There's we do obviously make 4x2 and 4x4 versions, so there's a couple of extra events that 4x4 vehicles go through, but in general they just all get the same level of abuse.
And the events are mud, hills, bumps, dirt, everything you can think of?
Gravel, salt, water, because we're out here in sunny Arizona, we don't see much snow and salt, but a lot of the other Michigan and those areas get a lot of salt in the road, so we also roll that into our testing.
So they run through all the same tests. How about us going out and taking a test on one of those trucks?
That'll be great. We've got an F-Series all lined up, light duty, so it'll be easier on everybody.
And this is the one that you said I could drive, right?
We'll see.
All right, let's go take a look.
Great.
So Chris, what is this that we have here?
This is an F-150 Super Crew 4x4.
And this is what we're going to take out on the test track.
This is what we're going to take on the test track.
All right, I'm going to enjoy driving this. This is going to be great.
Oh, no, not this time. Come on.
What? All right.
I'm driving this time. We'll see if we
All
get
right, fine. It's not too late. I could drive. So Chris, we are on the test track. This is what people have been hearing about for 40 years. This is Ford's proving ground right here. I know you go through extensive, everything you can think of, bumping and grinding and slipping and sliding and whatever. But kind of a basic, I would think, would be where we are right now, just a simple Circle 8.
Right. This is the start of the durability test. And basically, I don't know, I kind of call it a warm-up. Just start with a few figure eights and then get into some of the rougher stuff as you go on throughout the test.
So this would be one that would be, you'd feel real comfortable having me drive the car.
We need to get some training first.
All right, well, let's do some training. Let's go for a ride. So is the point of the Circle 8 to see how fast you can take it as far as cornering or stability or lean, or what happens? What's the result of doing the Circle 8 testing?
Well, we don't have rollover stability control in this vehicle, so we're not going to take it too fast. Actually, this is testing the steering components, the linkages, the electronics and stuff that goes on in transferring the horn and all the steering wheel controls back to the rest of the vehicle. Just puts it all under stress because we're going almost lock to lock as we're going around the figure 8.
We've done Circle 8s. These have to go around corners well. They have to corner, have to take the lean and all in the sway and all that, but they also have to stop really well. So what do we have here?
This is where we test the ABS, just a functional check of the ABS for safety as well as a test of the system.
Well, let's test the system.
All right.
It tested very well. This is the dirt road test track right here, right?
Correct. This is a gravel road. As you can see, we've got fairly large gravel spread across on top of dirt, and just some serpentine and some around the corners, and basically just test the stone pecking, make sure everything's protected from stones.
So just making sure that the stones coming up aren't doing too much damage to the vehicle?
That's right. The tires basically lift the stones up and the vehicle runs into them. So we have to make sure all the wiring's stowed up far enough away, or that it's protected. The fuel lines, the brake lines, just everything, make sure it's out of the way, and or if it is in the way, that it's going to be shielded, protected.
All right, let's get stoned.
Okay.
I'd assume you're also testing for just drivability in slippery stones here.
That's right. We don't have traction control on all the vehicles and don't need it on these vehicles, but it definitely checks the handling.
The viewers have all seen footage of vehicles on test grounds where they're going over really rough terrain to test the suspension. Is that what we're about to enter?
Correct. This is called Silver Creek, and this is probably the roughest event we have at the facility.
And the purpose of doing this is to test the suspension as far as its durability and how it will take rough handling on some of these vehicles. That's correct?
That's correct.
And have you ever had anything all of a sudden drop out of the bottom of this, or a suspension brake? I mean, you're pushing these things to take the maximum.
Yeah, we've had some parts come off, hubcaps, etc., but generally it stays attached.
And of course, Heidi with the Steadicam is getting just great footage of this, just as steady as can be, right, Heidi?
Yeah, that's right.
So, Chris, we've gone through bumpy roads, we've gone through gravelly roads. Now we have sandy road. So right away we feel it bogging down. So we're in four-wheel drive.
We're on 4 low, and generally we keep the speed right around 15 miles an hour, so it's stable, but yet puts a big load on the engine. We run it. The vehicle is empty, and then we also run them at the full gross vehicle weight. So it's a very severe test on the transmission and, again, the differentials.
The first impression I get about this part is this would be a really, really good place for me to drive because it's safe. We're not going to do any high speed. There's nothing to run into except a cameraman here or there. We don't care about that. So don't you think? Don't you agree?
Well, and there are barricades on the side, so it's tempting, but not yet.
So we looked at the durability of the undercarriage going through the really rough road part, and the undercarriage has to endure a lot of things, including damage from salted roads and coastal areas or any areas where there's a lot of salt. So we are about to enter into a long trough full of heavily salted water, right?
That's correct. We go through and it splashes up, gets all the underbody components full of salt water, and just tests how resistive everything is to corrosion. Also helps point out any areas where we may have a weak spot.
How salty is this? Is it like the Great Salt Lake, or is it compared to the ocean, or the way I like my mashed potatoes, just the kind of that level of salt?
It's pretty heavily salted. It can corrode through things in a week or two if it's not protected.
So it looks like we're entering the Great Salt Lake here. Okay. Yeah, I feel like a hydroplane flying here. We got a whole bunch of mud here, a lot of water, and the point of this is just to see how the traction is in muddy situations and how the undercarriage holds up under this type of treatment.
Correct. There's mud, so it packs in, make sure everything can withstand the mud getting in there and splashing, as well as it being water getting into the components and everything underneath. So it all has to be resistant and durable to the environment.
It seems to get even muddier the farther we go on this.
Yeah, they fill it full of mud and then grade it along.
Chris, you've done a great job today driving. Not as good as I could do, but you've done a great job. I know this is your job. I've provided you a lot of opportunities to allow me to drive, for you to have the experience of experiencing my ability to drive, which is phenomenal. I'm just speaking for myself. I'm an incredible driver. So I'm going to give you the opportunity one last time, and I'm serious, one last time, to allow me to drive this truck. What do you think?
Well, it's just an absolutely convincing argument, and we've gone through all the events, and I think it's about time. I think you've learned enough, and it's a safe enough environment for you to go ahead and drive.
All right. This is the day Chris lost his job. All right, I'll come on around. I get to drive. I get to drive. Okay, all right, I'm ready. Chris? Chris? Chris!
I thought I'd never get rid of that guy.